Okay, I think a lot of you are here. I think we can start, and if anyone wants to ask anything, they can write in the comments and I'll answer. So I'll just let you know. I'll start with how I'll tell you we'll go with this live. I'll talk I'll give you my introduction, and then talk a little bit about the essay writing competition, what we're looking for, what is it about, the brief, and as a jury member, what I and also my co-jury members are looking for to read in the essays that you want to that you'll be sending us. And then we can, I think after that I can answer your queries and questions, and you can just type them in the comments and I'll answer them. So hello everyone, this is Bhavna Gemini. I am an urban practitioner and writer. I've been writing on urban issues, on architecture for almost a decade now, not counting what I used to write in school, because I don't think that needs to be counted. That's just for me. If you are a writer in your college, then please keep writing. I think that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's why this competition is Urban Scripts, which we are here to talk about, is to encourage writing about architectural issues, urban issues especially, because and I'm very thankful to Rajesh for thinking of this this idea of getting students, and not just architecture and people from the urban development and urban construction sector to write about it, but also anybody who's interested in issues of cities and or anything urban. And because I feel like the urban is no longer just constricted to cities, it's reaching our village, it's reaching our forests, it's reaching, like, you know, the urban is a huge part of our country, are like the systems anywhere, and they're reaching everywhere. So that's why this competition, which is Urban Scripts, it's to encourage writing about these issues which we feel, not just at a professional level but also at a very human level, because we all have deep relationships with the places we live in. We have relationships with things in our cities, in our towns, and things are rapidly changing, and so is our relationship with our cities. And we wanted to give people a platform to not just voice those concerns, but also write about what they feel about what is happening to our cities, and not just, and I'm not speaking just for what is bad about in our cities, or, you know, what's changing, because often when we talk about any kind of change, it's always looked at in a negative connotation, like, and the first thing that goes to our mind is, okay, you know, this is not how it used to be, and this is how it should be. But yes, and that is very valid and that is very important, but this essay, I think you can go a little beyond and to sort of tug at what you feel, and I think follow that feeling and see where it takes you. So I think for me, I think I'm a very emotional person, and that's why, you know, my writing about, even when I'm writing about a window or, you know, or a river, I always start from a very personal place about what does a window make me feel, what is my relationship with it, and I feel that's where that's what I have tried to do in the writing. So I feel like good writing, which either it's architectural or and I know a lot of people write to me asking that, okay, how do we become architectural writers or architectural journalists? And most of the time I'm just like, you know, you just keep your personal at the core of it. And I feel like, and that's just me, I feel some other writers of like other kinds might not agree with it, but I feel like what you feel and your personal is the most political, and and that is something which me and a lot of my co-jury members, and even, you know, with Rajesh, who's the editor of Architecture Live, who initiated it, we feel that architectural writing can sometimes be not sometimes, most of the time, it's, you know, it's very dry, it's not very humanistic, it's you know, it's very flashy, and that's not what we want from neither from this competition, neither from the entries. We want people to keep themselves and their relationship at the center of whatever they are writing about. And this competition definitely has age limit. 18. It is for people aged between 18 to 30. There are other, what I've talked about, all of it is also on the website. The brief is there. You have to be an Indian citizen, and please don't plagiarize anything. Give due credits to quotes or work or photographs. Like, these are really basic things which can lead you, if you don't follow, can lead you to disqualification. And yeah, that's about it. So please tell me if you have any questions, and I'll be very happy to answer them. You can just type them in the comments. And yeah. Also, before we are waiting, I feel like you can, it's two writers which I feel like you can take inspiration from, and one is Jane Jacobs. I think she's like one of my, she's an urbanist, Asian American urbanist, and I think the way she writes has been really inspiring, because she puts everything at a very she relates everything to a very humanistic level, like whether she's talking about sidewalks or whether she's talking about buildings. I feel like she looks at architecture and urbanism from a very humanistic lens. So if you're looking for inspiration, then Jane Jacobs is somebody you should definitely go to. And the other person who really inspired me is Christopher Alexander. I think most of people who've gone to architecture schools, or even I'm sure, because this competition is also for people who are not from architectural and urban planning backgrounds, and there is a chance that you might not have heard of Christopher Alexander. But please, if your library, or it's also an expensive book, but if you can find it online, or if you can borrow it from your library, please read how Christopher Alexander and Jane Jacobs look at spaces and the way they write of it. I think reading Christopher Alexander's pattern language when I was in my second year was really, I think it really changed the way I looked at architecture, I looked at writing, and I think that for me it was extremely important, and it really impacted and influenced my writing. And other thing that I would like to suggest you do is that don't try to be too ambitious, because I feel like if you have not written a lot, and if this is the first thing that you're talking about, I feel like you don't have to use big words. You don't have to use heavy vocabulary, or like sit with a thesaurus and to be good writers. I feel like if you've read R.K. Narayan, his language is very simple, very narrative, very descriptive. He doesn't use like big words like Shashi Tharoor, but not saying Shashi Tharoor is not a good writer or bad writer, but I feel like that's and that writing is brilliant. So don't feel like if you don't have the big vocabulary you can't be a writer. I feel trust yourself, trust your language, and just constantly I will keep going to the fact that there is a core personal connection that you're probing, whether it's with yourself, with your city, whatever you're talking about it. So I think tug at that feeling, and let it take you somewhere, because that is very important, and that is something that will give you honesty, that will give honesty to your writing, your work. And so Rajesh said that, I just read that he said a lot of people have asked if small towns can be considered. Absolutely, yes, it doesn't matter. And like I said from the beginning, urban no longer means cities anymore, because the influence of urban is far reaching. It's reached towns, it has also reached our villages. the how urban India is also influencing architecture in smaller towns, villages. It's influencing food, it's influencing consumer patterns. So absolutely, I feel like it doesn't have to be urban, doesn't have to be just like, okay, it has to be a metropolitan city. It can be anywhere. You can be probing an urban cultural thing, or like something that has happened to your village, to your town, like some, like, to just give you an example, like in Jharkhand, during a visit, when I was working with Hunarshala, we found out that in the middle of forest, a lot of due to some a lot of tribal villages were displaced and moved to these really multi-story urban buildings. But these multi-story urban buildings were still situated in a rural context. But the style of this building is very urban, and these the tribals were not used to living with that, living in those typologies. But and it really like changed the way they their whole culture was, their whole day-to-day patterns were. So I think if somebody wants to talk about something like that, then it's definitely would be considered as a part of urban script. So yeah, I hope I'm clear. Rajesh, if you want something else that I should talk about, then please. Any other questions, anybody, any queries, any tips that you want? Also, do not, other tip is, do not edit while you're writing. Always write first and then do the editing, and get somebody to proofread your work. There is no harm in asking for for your friends for comments on your piece. There is no harm, like you can always ask somebody to read, and I feel like that really helps. I feel like I have a group of close friends who are like my personal, not editors, but a group of people I trust, and then every time I'm writing something, I will be like, oh, can you have a look? And then because I trust their feedback, and their feedback has also helped me in the past. So do not hesitate to take feedback. Like it is difficult, I feel, any creative process, I feel, and especially as architects within the architectural field, I feel like criticism, constructive feedback is not something which is very encouraged, because we do not even have the tools. And I'm not saying that just because we are like closed-minded, but I feel we just do not have the tools to engage with it without sounding very sounding very condescending, or putting somebody down. But I feel like that's not like that with the writers, and I feel that's my architecture and urban practice has that way, because other writers give different writers feedback very easily. So please ask for feedback. And if you this is a comment for architects who are writing and who are going to submit, is show your writing and make other non-architecture, non-urban planners, designer friends, parents, folks, whatever, read your work. I think that's very important for you guys. They should be able to read your writing more than your fellow architects. And I feel like if they are able to connect, people who are not from the field are able to connect and connect in a personal way or any other way, and they can understand what they're saying, I feel that means that your job has been done. So please do that. Don't feel like that, oh, I'm writing about this urban thing so people don't understand. It should not be like that. You have to everybody, your writing needs to be accessible to anybody who understands that language, let's put it that way. And no questions. I'm very surprised. Rajesh, do you think any other questions? If it's something that's coming to your mind, please let me know. Okay, assessment criteria. I feel because there are four of us on this jury, and I feel like everything, each of the jury member have a different, not slightly, not very different, but I feel like slightly like I think there could be different things that can touch us, and but I think one thing that I feel all of us are like really looking for is, one is clarity of thought and understanding. And I feel personally, why I said yes to reading about to saying yes to being on the jury and like reading, like, and some 550 of you have registered and reading all these entries, is because I am extremely interested in understanding what is the relationship of people, what is the kind of relationship people have with their places, and which is so not in architectural writing, in urban writing. It's not something that is very widely explored, because either we are talking about projects or either we are talking about people, but we never really put our relationship with the place at the center of any kind of writing. And I think that is the one big criteria that I would be really looking forward to reading, that just how do you see your cities, how do you see your towns growing, what is that one thing that you really like about it or you don't like about it, and what moves you, and it could be, you don't have to address all of it, but this is something that this is something that you need to. I feel like that's what we're absolutely looking forward to. Do we need to support our writing with pictures if needed, or should it be purely writing? Yes, absolutely. You can, if you want to support your writing with pictures. Absolutely, you can. You can also support it with if it's with sketches or like with maps or whatever. Like, it's up to you. But you know what? But it's not like you'll get extra marks for doing that. Or if it's just an essay or marks or whatever, yeah, like the criteria will be, it will work against you on favor. I think you are the better judge of that. If you think like something, a picture or a sketch or a map supports what you're trying to say, then absolutely yes. When you mean personal direction, should we stick to the writing in first? Okay, so the brief has there are two kinds of pieces that you can submit. So one is opinion pieces, which are up to 800 words, and then yes, in opinion pieces, like obviously because it's your opinion, you have to stick to first person. But in the second, which is like more long form, reportage or something, when you want to bring other people's voices, I think that then you decide, either you do it in a first person and then it can be a process of a conversation where you're quoting people who have spoken to you, or you can also do those pieces in third person, as reportage spaces. So completely your point. But opinion pieces, yes, because it is your opinion, so it will be in the first place. In the second kind of entry, it can be, it's up to you, whichever voice gives it the most powerful. Okay, how does one start the process of writing? Wow, this is such an existential question. Okay, I'll tell you how I start my process. So I and you don't have to follow it, but usually when I think of something I want to write about, and something that's and it depends on what kind of writing. Okay, so if I am writing, let's say, opinion piece, which is only about me and what I think about a certain issue, I let it brew. I'll write notes here and there, and then like once I think I'm ready, I'll just start and I'll like put it all down together, and then I'll read it, I'll show it to some friends of mine, edit it down and all. But if I'm doing a research oriented pieces where I'm interviewing people, for example, like recently what was the reason? Yeah, okay. So long back I did this commentary on the new when they were making, now it's canned, but when they were making the new capital city of Amravati, that time I wrote a commentary where I interviewed a lot of urban planners, farmers whose lands were taken, to understand what was, you know, the exact impact of Amravati and this megalith cities that the government was making. In that, like, I feel then I usually make a central structure. I note down what is my central argument, who all I need to talk to, and then I talk to those people, have those interviews, and then start writing the final piece. So I feel like every piece and what I'm trying to convey and what the kind of piece that I'm doing has a different process. Okay, so so somebody has asked, can we talk about the current political dimension of the town city with its influence on people in public? Yes, absolutely. I think this is great. But having said that, I feel it's also don't make general, like larger general connotations you cannot support with lived experiences. I think that is very important, because you know, let's say, like, if you're saying, if you want to talk about the tree cover in a city going down, or like, you know, how the water is getting contaminated, then do your research, talk to people, support it with statistics, support it with lived experiences of people who've been at the brunt of it. So because good writing is detailed writing. If there are no details, then we might as well just read like Instagram stories or, like, you know, captions. As detailed as you can be, I feel like, I mean, that is, I think, one common thing between writing and architecture is the detailing. The more detailed you are, the better your writing is going to be. And one more thing is, like, when you're talking about people and public spaces, give examples. And I think in examples, if you say like, oh, what kind of public space, use an example of, let's say, a garden or a public library or a public school, and what happened to this and its connection with its people. So start small and then deduce like a larger argument that you want to make through those different examples. So by the time you make this, that okay, by the time you make your final commentary in your piece, you have given the reader enough details and enough examples to sort of agree with you in the end. Can we take up a city and write about the changing fabric of the city over a period of time rather than just writing an essay? Can you elaborate over a time? But you know, it's like an historical piece where you are I don't know how what would be the form of this when you say but actually I would advise you not to do that, because like I said, I feel like we are not looking for information. If we want information, you know, essays are different from technical papers or scientific papers, because in scientific papers you have a research questions, and then, you know, you go into detail about probing that, and then you have the literature review, and then you have your social research or an empirical research to support it. Essay is not a place for that. I think essays are issue based. Essays are like far more focused, far more, you know, you can be far more playful than essays, than like a paper. So I would just say, just keep coming back to the personal, keep coming back to things around you, things that move you, things like, not just move you, something that you are noticing. You know, it doesn't always have to be your own experience. You can also be a medium to write about other people's experiences. But I think that's the difference between an essay, because it allows you to sort of transcend these different structures of a paper. And yeah, so I think write an essay. Anything else? But essay can have case study. Absolutely, yes, it can have, but you know, your central argument, what is your central argument? Like if you say, like, if a city has gone through different changes have been, you know, it's there's nothing like unique about it. Like obviously cities will change, it will go through different day. What kind of change? Like are you talking about public spaces? Are you talking about water? You know how this people's relationship with water has changed, or are you talking about how architecture has changed? And then I feel, and if you say architecture is too much, like, you know, is it the architecture of your public spaces? Is it the architecture of administrative building? Is it the architecture of like common housing? So the broad, because you have 1200 words to 1500 words, like you can't just talk about general, you know, you're not writing a Wikipedia entry about different changes. So even if you want to, like, what is that one change, and then like go into like the case study of that particular change vis-a-vis to whatever city that you're talking about. I hope I am clear. Any other questions? Also just general, I feel in the process of writing, going back to what because that's, I can go back to it because it's such a wide question. It's so difficult to answer period. But I feel good writing comes from reading. So, and just read a lot, and I feel like that's something that we are slowly losing, and less people are reading than they were before. So it can be both. Like I said, you can so it should be opinionated and interview based rather than more numbers and analysis. It can be, I would just you can arrive at those opinions through the numbers and analysis, and that's completely fine. I'm just saying that keep your focus, have a sharp focus to your essay, because I'm answering to when you said that changes in the city. So I'm just saying, bring that changes to change in a city, and change of what kind, to what respect, and its relationship with like the city and you or whatever, I think. So, and you can support it with anything. It can be your opinion, it can be through data, numbers, and through and sometimes, you know, and this is something that I do, like I support my opinion pieces a lot with numbers and statistics, and so that's like really common to do. Like I did I'm recently writing a piece on the safety of stray animals in Indian cities, and because personally I feel that the current urban development, the way our urban development is going, it makes not just stray animals but any kind of urban biodiversity very risk prone. And then I was trying to, like, you know, support that argument with doing a bunch of research to understand that how cities have changed, how city has, but the core of my article comes back to, you know, being these animals who are on the street, and then through that I'm trying to make the larger argument of why it's happening, and what is the historical looking at the history, the historical data, the present data, to deduce to the overall essence. So yeah, I hope I've answered that. Anything else? Yeah, so coming back to my reading, so please So please read a lot, and sometimes, just because reading also challenges you and your core beliefs, what you think about the world. And I think, and there is no I think there is no shortcut to reading. You have to, like, whatever, whether you're reading to a Kindle and reading like on your, and read all kinds of books. And I feel that's what happens. I feel with architects, definitely what happens is you go to architecture school, and then suddenly your library like changes. You're only like buying these architectural books and not like reading anything else. Please don't do that. Be curious about everything else. So read everything. Apart from focusing on climate change, should we address other environmental issues? Like I said, it's completely up to you. You can choose not to focus on climate change also. You can just focus on cultural change. You can focus on economic change. You can sort of other specific environmental issue. So yeah, like absolutely, because that the personal connection that we talk about is that for me, my writing is very sociological than more environmental, because I feel that's where my core is, the way I grew up, like the kind of how I see the world. Like it's very I look at everything through a very like sociological, anthropological lens, whether it's architecture or anything else. But I know writers who look at everything through an environmental lens, through the lens of climate change. So yeah, it's completely up to you. Like whatever, what's the point you're trying to make? And if focusing on other environmental issues is central to your argument, central to your essay, then yes. If it's not, don't. Any other questions? Okay, I think we are over time. Please give some tips about the urban script essay writing. Oh man, that's what I've been doing for the last half an hour. Did you just join? I think this live will be stored on the Architecture Live page for 24 hours. So people who are joining now can just can please come back and like listen to this discussion. Some great questions were asked, which I really enjoyed answering. It also gave me clarity about my own process and even what I'm looking to read in your essays. So yeah, thanks Rajesh. Yes, we can thank you. We can share the recording. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much. And please send in your entry. Please don't plagiarize. Please give proper citations of anything that you're using from outside, something which is not your own work. Then please cite it properly, give due credits. Do a grammar check. You can use Grammarly, like it's completely fine to use that, but don't ask ChatGPT to write your essays for you. That's not going to work. Rajesh is really smart. He has cracked it too. He has cracked the way to find articles which are written by AI. So that's not going to happen. And yeah, so see you at the other side of your entries. Thank you so much. And please keep writing. Please keep reading. And be curious. Bye-bye.